Hello and welcome to the flip side of adversity. I am Dr. Veirdre Jackson, the CEO and creative of Living Strong Consulting. So let's be real. Life can be heavy. The constant pressure and stress and fear, the systemic challenges that we face can weigh us down emotionally, mentally, and physically. This cumulative burden is called allostatic load, the wear and tear on our bodies from trying to adapt to ongoing stress. But here's the truth. You don't have to carry that weight alone, nor do you have to carry it forever. It's actually time for us to acknowledge the toll and actively seek real relief. You deserve to refill the areas of your life that have been depleted by people, places, circumstances, and expectations. So let's talk about it. How to lighten the load, restore your balance, and reclaim your well-being. Because you girlfriend, you deserve to live well, clear, and whole. So let's stay tuned. We're going to talk about it right here on the flip side. Stay with us. Trauma, toxic stress, broken habit, and hurting heart don't define destiny, but peace isn't passive. It requires an exchange. To create a flip and access peace in the middle of the pieces, you are challenged to make an exchange of the lies that have kept you mentally hostage in basement moments. Resilience isn't about bouncing back, but bouncing forward. Living Strong, the flip side of adversity, brings powerful stories and fearless conversations from experts in the field of business, relationships, emotional, physical, and mental health, and faith-based communities. Each episode creates a brave space with powerful tools from authentic connections. Tune in as we dig in with Dr. Jackson on the flip side of adversity. Hello and welcome to the flip side of adversity. I am Dr. Veirdre Jackson, and I am so excited to have my soror, my friend, and a powerhouse doctor who is committed to making an impact. She's here to have a conversation about how do we weatherproof our health. But let me tell you a little bit about her so that you get her receipts and understand she knows what she's talking about. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Shanda McManus. She is a writer and a family medicine physician with over 20 years in practice. She received her BA in English Literature from the University of Penn and her MD from Thomas Jefferson Medical College. She is an assistant professor of clinical medicine at the Hackensack Meridian School of Medicine, where she champions the practice of narrative medicine. Dr. Shanda writes about the intersection of life, race, and medicine. You can actually find her writings in Intima, Journal of Narrative Medicine, Midnight and Indigo, Bellevue Literary Review, and Swamp Pink. I love it. Yes. Shanda was privileged to be a 2021 PEN America Emerging Voices Fellow, and her debut book titled Brother Epistles, forthcoming in June of 2026, is a memoir of letters that probes grief, gun violence, societal forces, and sibling bonds. Well, Now she's not new to the flip side.
No, I was privileged to be here one wonderful time before. It was so much fun. I had to come back.
And like top the records in listening. I remember that episode was fire. And so I will not say welcome, I'll say welcome back.
Thank you for having me. It is so fun to get together with you and talk and be welcome in this space. So thank you.
So let's jump into it, because the first thing, I know that there may be some listeners who are tuning in who actually don't recognize the term narrative medicine. Can you first break that down for us?
Absolutely. Okay, so narrative medicine is the use of stories in healthcare for better outcomes. So on the doctor's side, it's on me to be able to absorb a patient's story, to interpret it, and then use it for better care. All right. On the patient's side, it's being in touch with themselves and also being comfortable enough to share their stories. And together, we come together, right? Using story, and we build a new story together of your healthcare. You know, it's an alliance, it's a partnership. But if I don't get your story, there's no partnership.
There's such a beautiful picture there of relationship, of trust, of vulnerability, all for the best version of our health story and how we can show up for and actually own the process of our healing journey and take on responsibility as well.
Yes, it's ownership in that.
Yes.
You know, if it's your story and you're making it together with your physician, much better outcomes. You leave feeling empowered, satisfied, and the doctor is also filled. Because this type of relationship builds empathy, you know, and medical care without empathy is half medicine. Even if I give you the right technical treatment, if I do it without empathy, you don't feel good at the end of it. And eventually, I don't feel good. I become burned out because I'm not getting that human exchange, right? So that's kind of a little bit about what narrative medicine is and how I'm a big advocate for using it for better outcomes.
And I feel like that's also brought us to this particular conversation. Your empathy, your passion, your wisdom, and your actual clinical knowledge have come together to have an honest conversation around this term of weathering.
Yes, weathering.
So for those of you who have not had an opportunity to subscribe to Dr. Shanda's WeatherProof newsletter on Substack, it's a must read. And I tell you, I subscribed, and when I saw the newsletter entitled with this title about weathering and recognizing as Black women, there's a weathering experience we're having, it went straight to my soul. I said, oh, no, wait, my sword's going to have to come back on. We're going to have to talk about this.
Yes. So weathering, that term was coined in the 90s by Dr. Arlene Geronimus. And basically, she's a social health researcher, and she was looking at Black maternal outcomes. And so she had these Black women in their 20s who were giving birth, and then she had these teenagers, Black teenagers who were giving birth. And so you would think that the ladies in their 20s would have better outcomes than the teens. No, the teens did better. And she just couldn't get her head around it. And she thought about it and thought about it. And it turns out the ladies in their 20s were aged. They were older, you know. So the younger women, the teenagers, hadn't had a chance to get that old physically. You know, and so that really kind of, you know, has gained more and more traction because, you know, Black women have higher rates of heart disease, diabetes. We have more breast cancer, more things like diabetes and lupus. And it's more than genetics. It's more than lifestyle. So, It's this
Yes.
big part of the story that wasn't there. And so the weathering hypothesis really kind of explains that.
Wow.
And it goes into, okay, so what is actually happening with
Yes.
weathering, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's biologic stress, that comes from the outside. You're in a stressful situation, there's racism, there's discrimination, there's microaggressions, there's historical trauma. All these things put you into the fight or flight, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure your listeners have heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're getting chased across the savannah by a cheetah, you need your heart rate to
Yeah.
speed up. You need all that sugar to flood your system so you have energy to run. But that's only supposed to be for 3 minutes. You're not supposed to live in that constantly. And that wears and tears on your body and makes you older faster. And that is part of the phenomenon of weathering. That's what it comes from.
And you're literally, if anybody who was in my training about 5 hours ago, we literally talked about how your sympathetic nervous system was only meant to turn on and turn back off.
Yes.
It was never meant to be on all the time. And if we do not pay attention to how we can shift and actually activate our shutoff valve of the parasympathetic nervous system, we can sit in that state and your body will wear down from
Yes,
it.
you age faster,
Oh,
and even certain things like we see in Black women's health, like early menopause. Why
yes.
is that? Why do we have earlier menopause? Well, we're getting aged much
Oh,
faster than other women, you know?
and so that in that this moment,
Mhm.
I just had an aha moment. I'm wondering, as you've dug into the literature around this conversation, was there anything that surprised you or was an eye opener for you as you're doing this work, as you're really remaining committed to conversations that are supportive to women?
I think what kind of surprised me, I knew it a little bit, how healthcare can be biased against you, can
Okay.
blame you for your own poor health outcomes. Yes, genetics plays a role, lifestyle, you do have responsibility, but then there's this whole thing of weathering that takes place that's unacknowledged. So you kind of feel guilty or like a failure or, like, I just have to do better. Well, yes, but you should be informed that it's not only your lifestyle.
Yes.
You're playing with a deficit when you start, right? So just knowing that, and I think that kind of, once you know about weather and you're like, okay, all right, now I have more information. Now I can be really intentional about combating
Yes.
weathering, right?
Yes. I was talking with a girlfriend this morning about yesterday. I literally was walking around with this feeling of a heaviness. Nothing in particular had happened, but it was almost like there was like this wet blanket on me. And I had to pause and really unpack, like, what is this? And I feel like when we're so bombarded with so much, especially now, that it can send us into an emotional exhaustion. And when I looked at, I began in the moment because I was like, something is going on
Hmm.
because I'm very attuned to how my body is responding.
Yep.
And the term that I was given was racial battle fatigue.
Yes.
And I said, but in the moment, it's so red. I was like, that's it.
That's it. And we have to be allowed to acknowledge that. That is a part of our story, right?
Yes.
And so just getting that idea out there and having us be informed about, okay, this is the hand we have. Now we can figure out how to play,
Yes.
right?
Because
right?
and I agree with you, because once I had that term, it almost like, oh, okay, that's what this is.
Hmm.
Now what am I going to do in
Exact,
response? And
exactly.
in your bio and the materials you gave us, you even, now this is the flip side of adversity.
Yeah,
So I'm going to lead in.
tell me
I'm
about
going
it.
to lead in. You shared how you even had your own personal moment of realizing, like, wait a minute,
Yes,
something's happening to me.
yes,
Can you
yes.
tell us a little bit about your
Oh
story?
my gosh. So here I am, my late 40s. I go to my primary and get my blood pressure taken. And she's like, "Woo, this is this is really high." And I waved her off. I was like, "No, just take it again." I'm thinking, I don't got time for this. Right? She takes it two more times. Um, it is really this high, critically high, like 180 over 110 high. I'm
Shonda.
like, me? Like, no, that happens to patients. That me,
I mean,
not me. But yes, it was true. And along with that, my cholesterol was high. My blood sugar was in the pre-diabetic range. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't do that bad, do I? I've been eating okay. I've been doing, and I felt so like just defeat. I came in the door and my husband was like, "What's wrong with you?" Because I was just like,
all defeat,
he
all
was like,
sad.
"What happened?"
Right.
And then when I and so that really motivated me. It's nothing like the doctor getting the disease themselves that makes them a better doctor and makes them more
Mm,
informed about things. So
mm.
I really started digging into it, and I said, okay, there is some family history, both sides of my family, hypertension, diabetes. I knew that, cholesterol. But finding out about the weathering effect, and especially I would say high achieving Black
Yeah.
women,
Go ahead. Go
okay?
ahead.
And being in spaces where we're not expected to be, where we're questioned, all that kind of pokes at you.
Yes.
We're in it so long we don't even notice that we're always kind of on alert or expecting, questions like, "Are you the doctor?" I'm like, "She just said I was." But anyway, all that those sorts of things take a toll, being in certain neighborhoods where people are like, "Is the homeowner home?" I'm like, "Who, me? Me? Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
I'm the homeowner." So those are just examples of these micro, that we live in kind of a
Mm-hmm.
pressurized thing,
Yes.
and so once I became aware of that, I'm like, okay, all right. So now I can understand a little bit more. And now I need to be on those things to combat that even more,
Yes.
and we can talk about that, things you can do to fight weathering, because you're just like, oh, this is bad news. What do we just have to live in this? Is it no hope? No,
So
there are things you can do.
that's good. There's things you can do, but you're gonna have to wait on a little bit longer because I have more questions.
Okay,
I've
okay,
got more
good, more, more.
questions because I feel like, so yes, we currently in our day to day can be combated by scenarios, situations, systemic things that, as you say, poke and activate our system. Is there a generational piece that connected to the generational trauma that can also be connected to this?
Yes, I love talking about this. So this brings up, have you heard of the field of epigenetics?
Yes.
Okay, so it's the idea that your very DNA, your genes, your genetic material that you pass on to your offsprings that have been passed on to you can be altered by trauma.
Yes.
It changes the longevity of your DNA, the health of your genes, and
Mm-hmm.
also what gets expressed.
Mm. Boom.
So think about, I think about my grandmom, right? She was raised in Georgia, born in 1931, Jim Crow South. She picked cotton. She worked as a housekeeper. She was in town when Martin Luther King, they ran him out of her town. He
Wow.
couldn't turn that town over. Threw
Wow.
bricks in her window. She's hiding under the bed with her sisters. Like, coming from that, migrating up north, leaving all her family, and so and who knows the trauma that her mother and her mother's
Yes.
mother. So that's part of our story too, right?
Mm.
That historical damage that
Mm-hmm.
we just inherit.
Yes.
We just
At
inherit.
a DNA level.
DNA. Like, this is not,
Yes.
you didn't eat the right food.
Right.
Your DNA is in a riskier position because of that historical structural trauma that our ancestors have lived through.
Yes. And so for the listeners who are traveling with us all month, I have a guest. His name is Brandon Brown. And we have we have had this sibling relationship for years, and so he's going to be a part of a multi-series conversation around gender and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And if
Mm-hmm.
you listened last week, you heard him reference epigenetics, and now you just got the breakdown in connection between those two episodes. But realizing that, and I'm wondering if, again, if you haven't gotten the Weatherproof newsletter. So today's newsletter, I just got mine in my mailbox. And so today's newsletter, you were talking about the stories that our mothers didn't tell us. And so sometimes there are things that have literally been in our grandmothers that they've carried, sicknesses they have held on that were never talked about.
Never. That no one talked about it. They may not even have known themselves, right? So much of our story can be missing.
Yeah.
Right? That's, actively trying to be erased from places around the country.
Which is scary.
Yeah. But a lot of it is unknown, but it's there. It's there. The little bit you can know about your ancestors, it was hard.
It was hard.
It was hard,
And what you're sharing is that too is a part of this puzzle.
Absolutely. And it adds, it's kind of on the continuum with weathering, right? Like, so you have epigenetics, you have weathering, and you have adverse childhood experiences. ACEs, right? So those are things that happen when you are a child and you're not in charge. Maybe it's, a parent that has mental illness or is incarcerated or has substance abuse, or your family was homeless, or so many things, even divorce.
Yes.
And those adverse experiences, in adulthood, you're more likely to suffer from chronic illnesses.
Yeah.
Because of, and that's the same thing we're talking about here, the impact of trauma and stress biologically.
Yes.
It's not just in your mind, it's in your body.
And when we recognize, especially in this month that we're in May, as it is Mental Health Awareness Month, that the things that we are experiencing are not just emotional.
No.
That they reside in our bodies. They can show up, they can manifest in our emotions, but it begins to actually affect us biologically, physically.
Yep. Affects your life expectancy, affects the quality of your life. There's a live sicker, die quicker adage that's applied to us a lot. And that's where it comes from. All these things that happen outside of us have biological impact.
Wow. So what do you want people, or let me rephrase that, by becoming aware of weathering, what are the benefits of just actually even becoming aware that this is a thing?
Okay, so the first thing is you don't feel as guilty, like me.
Say it.
So when I went and I had high blood pressure, I was like, oh no, what did I do wrong? Okay, so, I can reduce my salt, I can do things, but there's another piece of that diagnosis that was beyond my control, even before I was born. And so just having that knowledge is super empowering, right?
Yes.
Because you kind of feel like you got the answers wrong on the test, or you're just, you haven't been doing it right. It's all your fault. It's
It's
not.
not.
It's
There's
not.
more.
So that makes you more likely to do something about it. You don't have all these negative self feelings in and around whatever the diagnosis is. So I think, to me, it's like a mindset change. You can think of, okay, so I'm at a higher risk because of things like weathering, historical injury. Okay, so now I really have to take charge and, do these things to prevent those bad outcomes. So
Yes.
I think that is really, for me, one of the most powerful things. And then right now, today, going forward, live your life in a way that reduces, weathering. If you're in a bad working environment and you can make a change, make a change. Your life can be at stake. And it's really, really important to realize how much that constant environmental
continues to add pressure onto an equation that is aging faster than you chronologically are.
Yes.
So how are you using your words and your voice to reach people?
Well, that's one of the reasons I started the newsletter, because I just feel like there wasn't enough. We're not
talking about
it, right? I'm like, but everyone needs to talk about it. I was in medical school in the 90s, and that wasn't a thing. Okay, that wasn't a thing at all. So now it's a little bit more in the medical field. We're realizing the social determinants of health, like where you live, what you have access to, and all this. Well, this is another social determinant of health, right? Racism, discrimination, historical trauma, all that for us is another determinant of health. So I think that awareness, and so people know, what's at stake, what you're at risk for. It's like knowing your risk.
Yes.
Now,
this might be a tricky question.
Okay. Get ready.
Yes. So I'm telling you up front. So I'm listening to this. Is there a space in which I could actually have this conversation with my doctor? Because I don't necessarily have Shanda on, and I'm getting ready to age myself on my Rolodex. I don't have Dr. McManus on my Rolodex. So is there a space, an opportunity to have a weathering conversation with your physician?
That is an excellent question. So I think when you choose a physician, there's a relationship, right?
Yes.
There should be a relationship. If there's not, if the doctor doesn't like you or you don't like the doctor, find another doctor.
Yeah.
Your outcomes are going to be worse. There's been studies.
Because there's not even any trust there.
Right. No relationship. So if you're fortunate to you should find a provider that you can talk to. And that provider, back to the narrative medicine, should be able to listen and absorb your story, right? And being a Black woman in America is a part of your story.
Yes.
Right? So they need to acknowledge that's a part of your story. And if they don't, you got to find another doctor, because that is so important, because our position in society affects our health.
Yes. There's such a powerful concept of I'm interviewing the doctor as much as they are.
Absolutely.
That is real, but I don't think every woman is actually recognizing that.
You have the power. Now, I understand people don't have equal access. That's a big problem in our country. There's not equal access. So you may be locked in to this short list of providers, but find a trusted source of health information. That's what I'm trying to do with WeatherProof, right? In places where you can get information about people like you and with regard to different healthcare problems, diseases.
So I think about resources that, as you've talked about epigenetics, you've talked about weathering, you have really made a direct line between our circumstances, our experiences, historically and current, that are also connected to our biology. I think
Yep.
of a book that I love called The Deepest Well by
Mm.
Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. Do you have a book recommendation for people to consider and explore if they want to do more reading on this topic?
Well, Dr. Geronimus, she
Yes.
has a book, Weathering. It's all
The
about it.
whole book is called Weathering.
The whole book is called Weathering, and it's been updated. She did her research in the 90s, but she recently went back post pandemic, and she brings in some of those. And then there's another book. Oh, I'm gonna think of it. Linda Villarosa. It's a great book. I'm gonna have to give it to you. It's on the tip of my tongue.
And watch, before we're done, it'll come to you.
Yeah, but that book is really, and basically she's acknowledging, racism and poor outcomes, and she's looking at all these cases, historical, currently, how that has impacted. So I really, really like those two resources just to learn more about this whole phenomenon of weathering, epigenetics, how racism, discrimination affects us biologically. We really need to know that.
We do. And can we also, in this moment, as a physician, create or help listeners understand the connection to mental health awareness, this physical piece, and how they actually are interconnected?
Yes. So physical mental health is very closely linked, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think physical health starts in the mind. Okay. It starts there. How you think about who you are, what your purpose is, why you're here, right? That's all going to affect how you take care of yourself or don't take care of yourself, right? Mm-hmm. If you're having stress, anxiety, depression, your body's going to react that way, right? You're more likely, if you're depressed, anxious, you're more likely to get upper respiratory infections, for them to take longer to heal. That's a direct correlate, right? Wow. Your immune system function goes down when you don't feel good mentally. So it's really important, it starts there, because if your head is right, you make that body do anything.
It starts there.
Right. It starts there. So I think there is a super strong, it's kind of one coin, two sides, right?
Oh, so people are like, okay, I understand. So what do I need to do?
Oh, what do you?
They're like, okay, I agree. I recognize.
Okay, all right. So this is the part you're like, oh, okay. So there's about 7 things. The first thing.
So pause. Before you start giving, I need to give a disclaimer. Nothing we are saying is replacing what your doctor has said. This is not direct medical advice. Still go to your doctor. We are having a conversation to raise your awareness, to impact your questions, and for you to have more power within your own sphere of control and influence.
Absolutely. Double underline that. We are not replacing your doctor's advice. You need to see your own doctor, but I'm hoping you can go into those encounters more equipped.
Yes.
Okay. More equipped.
Feeling more confident.
Yes. And empowered and saying, I know this isn't all on me.
So before you go there, let me tell you something. I heard this podcast.
Yes,
Dr. McManus told me.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
So can we go back to the flip side moment before we jump into those 7?
Yeah.
So what was the mindset flip you had to make
Okay.
for a level of accountability for your own shift?
Okay, so first thing, doctors aren't immune. That
part.
wasn't gonna that
Well,
wasn't
that
gonna
part.
save me.
That part.
You can get sick just like
Yes.
everybody else because you are just like everybody else at the end of the day. First thing, and just kind of accept, okay, this is my reality. All right. And there's a genetic component, but there's this other component, and I could sit here and wallow, but I got things. I got 5 kids. I got things I want to do. I got
The whole
newsletters to write. I have books to write. I want to be my best self. So I know the risk, like, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, high blood sugar. You're on the fast track to heart attack. Which heart disease is the number one killer of everybody. Everybody. That's the number one cause of death, heart disease.
Wow.
And that is related, like I said, to those things, So
you said cholesterol, blood
pressure,
and
sugar. Blood sugar. Those are the trifecta of, welcome to heart attack land.
And that whole conversation, know your numbers.
Know your numbers. You really, really know your numbers, your cholesterol number, your blood pressure number, your blood sugar number. Are you pre-diabetic? And that term pre-diabetic, I kind of don't love it because it makes it sound like you don't have anything. Like
It's not here yet.
No, it's actually some of the time your blood sugar is too high, right? That's happening some of the time, not most of the time, but enough that number is high.
What you just shared, I want someone to hear. You acknowledged it, and then you decided that I'm not going to stay there.
Right.
You didn't stay in the pity party. You didn't wallow in it. Recognizing I'm human.
Yes. Yes. Doctors are human.
Acknowledging it, but then you made a decision that I've got more to do. Ooh.
I got more to do. So that goes back to that mental piece, right? Being connected to your purpose, right?
Yes.
You have a goal. You have things that you want to see happen. You want to be the best for the people that you love, right?
Yeah.
And the position you are in life. So if you don't take care of your body, you're not going to be there to do that, right? So, okay.
So now the practical ways I know y'all have been waiting. They're like, woo,
get your notebook out, write down.
Right now. Oh, look, Esther S. Is this the book? Linda Villa.
Yes, the hidden total raisin. Yes, thank you.
Look at
that
Esther.
Is it.
Yes, indeed. If you on our social media pages, Esther identified the book Under the Skin, The Hidden Toll of Racism on American Lives and the Health of Our Nation. So that's the second book that Dr. McManus was trying to think of. So great resources to dive a little bit deeper. So now, we've given you enough time to get your pen and your paper because we're getting ready to dive in. Because as my monologue shared, this does not have to be your story, and it does not have to stay with you forever. There are, as your newsletter by name identifies, we can weatherproof our health. So inform us, Dr. McManus.
Okay, so the first one, which I'm sure is everyone's favorite, let's talk about food. Okay, let's talk about food.
Someone just rolled their eyes.
Yeah, I know, like,
really?
Let me turn the sound down on this one. No. I think of it like this. Think of the things you should eat instead of what you shouldn't eat. Like a diet heavy in fruits, vegetables. They're full of antioxidants that fight all these bad factors going on. So that should be, your first thing, a whole food, plant-based approach. Now, is that the only thing you eat? No. I call myself a flexitarian. Okay,
I
so
think you made that up.
a little bit. Look it up. I'm sure it's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a little bit of a thing, but really that means it's nothing that I completely say, oh, I can't ever eat that, right?
Mhm.
But what you do on most days. That's what I tell my patients. Hey, it's your birthday. You're going out for a special dinner.
Yes.
But it's like that every day, that Monday through Friday, all those little boring meals.
Mhm.
What are you choosing to eat? So I like to tell people try to eat close to the ground, meaning it's not heavily processed, right? It's
Yes.
only a couple steps from the ground or the farmyard to your plate,
Mhm.
as much as you can. Pick that minimally processed
Wow.
food.
So we're starting with nutrition.
Nutrition.
And for all of our listeners who remember Coach D, my trainer, if she's listening, she is cheering in the background because it does. You can't outwork a bad diet.
No, and you're eating what 3 to 5 times a day,
Mhm.
so that's something you're doing day in and day out. So I think that is foundational to weatherproofing, because you have all these opportunities.
Right.
Every day you wake up and you have 3 to 5 opportunities to weatherproof yourself.
She's painting such a positive picture.
I know, it's so fun.
It's so beautiful. These are opportunities.
Yes.
They are opportunities. Yes.
Yeah.
All righty. So that was one.
That was one. So the next thing is get moving. You got to move. Okay. So the recommendation is you get 150 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise a week. So what's moderate? I always get that question. I said, so if me and you are walking, we can talk, but I can't sing. I can't sing happy birthday. I get out of breath. So that's how you know that you're doing enough moderate exercise. And, that can be anything.
Yes.
It's just important to pick something that, one, you're going to do, 2, that you're going to do, and 3, that you like, that after you go to that class or you do that workout in your home, you feel like you feel good,
That's good.
and think of unconventional ways to do it. The gym isn't for everyone, right? So one of my favorite things, if I'm fixing dinner, I have on my music and I, do a little dance while I'm doing some work.
Yes.
And that counts, so be creative, and also find a partner. Accountability works great. If you know your friend is waiting on you to exercise, or you have a date at the gym, then you're more likely to go, right?
100% true.
Yeah, so that's a little hack. And, other things, lay out your clothes, decide what you're going to do the day before, fill up the water bottle, do all those little teeny things that kind of push you towards making it a habit.
And I also think those small things are also the very things that would prevent you from getting out the door.
Yep.
So they are the things that can help push you, but if you haven't done it, they're the very thing that, I can't find my shoes, so I might as well get back in the bed.
Yeah, where's my sports bra? I need one. We're jumping up and down that class. I need it. Yeah.
All that stuff. And then you look up and you've missed the class.
Yep.
So intentionality and preparation.
Yep, and then you see those workout clothes and they're staring at you. You feel convicted. Right? You put it out. So, little things like that can really help you build in the system.
Yes.
Because it's not like you have bad intentions. Right. You really do want to weatherproof. You really do want to be better. So why do you keep failing? Well, you don't have a good enough system.
Yeah. I love it. And 3?
3 is protect your peace.
Well, drop the mic.
Yes. Protect your peace. We've been talking a lot about how outside things cause your biology to rev up and stay revved up. Look, you have to really be honest about your life.
Yes.
Tell yourself a true story.
Yes.
If you're in a situation or you're with people or circumstances are just
strangling you.
Right, strangling you. And you can change it, because sometimes we tell ourselves a story that we cannot change it, but we can.
Good. Yeah.
But it'll be hard, but
That's
we can.
the part. We could change it. It just is going to be difficult.
Yeah, and seek support. I know there's listeners out there, they may have a very stressful job. They may be in the sandwich, caring for parents, caring for children. All the, reach out, ask for help, acknowledge you need help. I think a lot of times as Black women, we're strong Black women. We can do it all. We got it. We got this.
And we're dying.
We are dying. Actually, we're dying. We're getting older faster. We're dying, right? So you really have to open yourself to being vulnerable to say, this is too much. I cannot do it. I'm going to say, I'm weak. This thing is too heavy. I need some support, and really seek out those opportunities to get support.
Yes. I will never forget, just a side note, funny, the last time you were here and you said, I have trained my 5 dependents to recognize that I need time for me. You had literally just started the process of your creative journey, and you were we were literally still just coming out of the pandemic. And so I was having a conversation with a doctor talking about creating margin.
Yep.
And you shared how when you created that space for you, it impacted everything. But the 5 dependents had to figure out.
Yes.
You can't have constant access.
No, I'm going to put a line. And, maybe it felt a little mean, but you have to put up your boundaries, because they'll just keep on taking.
But we train people.
Yeah, I trained them, and then they're like, oh, mommy's working. Oh, I can talk to you after. Yeah. I gave them a couple looks, a couple ignoring. Just ignore it, Mom. She doesn't live here. Yeah, so you kind of really have to, I just want people to feel like you deserve that.
Yes.
Like, sometimes we're giving. You don't feel like you deserve it, but we do. You have value. You have worth. You have things that only you can do.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And I think we're on 4.
Oh, 4. Go to bed. Okay.
Get out of my business.
Yes. Go to bed. Go to sleep. Okay. So 7 to 9 hours. Okay. A lot of times we're running around all day, and then we want to stay up at night and have time on Netflix or whatever. I don't know, but you need to go to bed. You need your sleep. Your insulin resistance gets messed up. Your metabolism, it's harder to keep your weight down if you are not sleeping well. So sleeping is essential. So it's really important.
And 7 to what?
7 to 9.
Okay, I've
consistently. Yep, a lot of that is at bedtime. That bedtime.
Have to work on that.
Yes,
Wow.
And try to train yourself to go to bed about the same time and to wake up about the same time.
Okay. Let's move on to 5.
Let's skip that one.
Let's keep it moving.
Okay, so the next one is, I'm going to talk about substances.
Okay.
Tobacco. Cigarettes are not good for you. Any form, it's just not. It's just not. So that is a big one. Recreational drugs, people are adults, but, a lot of usage, it's just not, it's a toxin. Alcohol is a toxin. Okay. I'm not saying, I think people should moderate, but really there's been studies to show that no amount of alcohol is healthy. Okay. Because, some years back in the 80s, red wine is good for your heart.
Yes.
Okay. No. You can get those good components that are in red wine from grapes and different things like that. Not as fun as a glass of wine, but yeah. So really that, keep in mind how you are using substances. Yes. And that's really important. And I think kind of recognize, right. People eat healthy and exercise and, still smoke.
Yeah.
And drink way more than is reasonable.
Right.
So that's a big one.
Oh, 6.
6.
People are like,
I'm
man,
like,
let
oh,
me put
yeah,
my
okay,
pen
like, oh my gosh. Well, this
down.
one now we
Yes,
got the
yes.
hard ones out of the way. No. Okay, this one I love. Connect. Have a community. Connect with people. You know, we've known each other, what, over 35 years? Since we were like 19 years old. You know, so having communities and people in your life that you can connect, that you can talk to, seeking opportunities to, you know, be in your community, be around other people. You know, loneliness and isolation, and we saw this a lot during the pandemic, can be as bad for you as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Yes.
Okay, so it really impacts you biologically. We are relational beings. We need to be in relationship. So really, really think about, are you cultivating relationship in your life? You know, and making space and time for that. Really important.
Listeners have heard me say over and over again that we are hardwired for connection.
We are. It's essential to our, you know, for survival.
For survival.
Yes, we are born to 2 people, and automatically you're in a group of 3. You know, and then our wider families. It's a reason for that.
Wow. And 7,
find a healthcare provider that you can trust. This is so important. You know, you really need to be comfortable with the person who is taking care of you. And you need to trust them, because you don't know everything that there is to know. You can't read everything on Google. And, you know, Dr. Google can only take you so far. Okay. So I have patients that come to me and say, oh, I read this on the internet. And I can say, oh, you know what? That's absolutely right. Or, oh, no, that is just not true.
It's not true.
That's not true. But, you know, if you have a provider you trust and you have a relationship and rapport, then, you know you're in good hands when they say, hey, I really think you should consider taking this cholesterol medicine that I know you don't want to take. You say, it's time. You feel like I can trust this person.
Yeah. And it's time because, as you said, there is more for you to do.
So much more.
So much more. And recognizing that there is more for you to do, what is on the horizon for Dr. McManus?
Wow. The biggest thing is next June, my book is coming out, and I'm just so happy about that. You know, it's something that I've really been working on, something that's been on my heart. And so right now I am just working on, you know, preparing myself to get this book out in the world, making sure the book is everything that it can be, making sure the book reaches the people that I would like it to reach, you know? And I just think, you know, sharing our stories is just so important, and it gives me a chance to share part of my story, but for wider impact. You know, it's a story about me and my brother who was lost to gun violence. He was 20 years old. While I was in medical school, I was a first year. And so dealing with that grief, that trauma finally, after like 30 years, because I didn't deal with it. So that's kind of what the book is about.
Honesty there,
I didn't deal with it. So, but also the question I'm asking in the book is like, why him? Right? And so all those structural determinants of health, that's why young Black men are 10 times more likely to die by homicide than others, right? So it's a very personal story, but I wanted to impact wider. So I'm really focused in on that. And of course, WeatherProof. I am so enjoying just sharing that information every week. So I want to continue just to share and grow and really connect with people over, you know, health and just how you can be better and live well.
So I know those who are in watching social media are seeing the image of WeatherProof and can catch it, the link in the comments. But if I'm listening, can you explain how I can find WeatherProof? What's the website? How can I find it if I'm a listener?
If you're a listener, it is Substack, and it's my name, Shanda McManus.
Spell it for us, please.
Okay, it's ShandaMcManus.
Yes.
All right, and you can find me over at Substack.
And how much does it cost?
It is free. Okay, so when you go on there,
Yes.
listen, for me, this is community service. I just want to share the information. So there's an option you can sign up to be paid, but really I support the Black Women's Health Imperative with any proceeds, but nothing is behind a paywall. It is free.
Oh, it is free. It is from a physician who is passionate about making sure you understand the truth, and that you understand how your story is impacting you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
This is wonderful. Is it over?
No. So I tell all the time.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, I know. People say 55 minutes. Yep. Yeah. And it goes by so fast. But before we end, I always ask my experts.
Yeah.
So this show has gotten into the hands of people at just the right time. I'll never forget, I was a keynote speaker for a nursing conference, and I was there to talk about refill. And a nurse I had never met before, I did not know at all. She said, someone just sent me your podcast, and I was ready to quit. And I started listening, and it's helped me stay in the field and stay connected to my work. And so that moment has forever impacted me, because she was a complete stranger. So I always consider, when I have experts in the chair, somebody has gotten this podcast at a moment when they are tired. A Black woman is thinking about just quitting. What do you say to her as she is feeling the weight of weathering? Can you speak directly to her as we close out?
You can do it. You can do it. You can fight. You can do it. And it doesn't need to be a big, giant thing. It can be the smallest thing. 150 minutes, start with 5 minutes. Okay? Start with 5 minutes walking around your kitchen. Change one thing that you eat at breakfast. Very small, sustainable steps, but you can do it.
Yes. It doesn't have to be huge.
No. And usually huge doesn't work. Huge is usually not sustainable. So little things that you could say, I
can do that.
5 minutes, I can do that. Right. You can do that. And then you just build on it. You just build on a little bit.
Because as you have said throughout this episode, you are worth it.
You're worth it. You have value. You are important. We need you in the world. Only you can contribute what you have. And without you, we are missing.
So you just held someone accountable. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for your yes. Thank you for traveling.
Thank you. This was so fun. I love you. I'm having so much fun.
I love you.
I could talk for the rest of the night.
See? And as we head out to dinner together. Yes. I also want to make sure, is there a social media handle that people can follow to connect with things that you're posting, announcements, those kinds of things?
Shanda MD Writes on Instagram. I'm usually, that's the one place I usually am the most.
Yes. Well, there you have it. It is possible to weatherproof your health. I know that we laid out the facts and they may have felt heavy, but when you're more aware, you actually have an opportunity to decide, am I going to have a pity party, or am I going to pivot and take my health back?
Yep.
So I want to encourage you, as Dr. Shanda has shared, you can do it.
You can do it. You absolutely can do it.
And during this entire month, we are encouraging you to recognize the story, the narrative, the work of Mental Health Awareness Month is that your mental health is not just an emotional thing, it's connected to your body.
Absolutely.
And you can create a flip. You can create a flip. This is your invitation. As Dr. McManus would say, this is your opportunity.
Yes, it is.
You have been given an opportunity, and we hope you will say yes and continue with the dialogue, continue with our conversations. This entire month, we're continuing to dive deep into this conversation and aspects, different facets of mental health awareness that aren't just limited to how you are emotionally feeling. So will you stay with us? If you will, same time, same place, right here on the flip side. We'll see you next week.